Hi, welcome to ConvinceMeAudio. Courtesy of my friend Armand over at the Audio Lounge private chat, we have the review of this, the Soncoz SGD1 DAC. Let's talk. So, if you're currently in the progress of updating your system from, say, something like a Zen DAC or something in the lower tier of the SMSLs like the SH8S behind me, which is slightly lower price point than this. This comes in at $500, and you're starting to look ahead towards building a new system, this is worthy of your consideration. So let's take a tour around the unit. In the front, we have a jog wheel which controls the digital volume. We have a display with LEDs that indicates what options have been chosen and nothing else. Very plain. And then we turn the box around. We have vents in this beautiful pattern. So nice. And then the other side, obviously, is the same process. And then we have the underside where the vents carry on in the same manner to distribute the heat, because this thing does get a little hot. Fully balanced. Now, let's take a tour around the back. This unit, facing it towards you, we start with an on and off switch, power, adjustable voltage for the power supply inside, optical, USB, coax, AES, and then we have the analog balanced out, 3-pin XLR obviously, and RCA outputs. The RCA output is located between the balanced. Now be careful, because if you have custom cables and the connectors are very thick and big, there's a very small chance that they might impinge on each other, but I doubt you'll have this issue. If you look carefully, there is like 0.5 centimeter at least between each connector point, which is pretty straightforward. Turning this unit around, it's quite a hefty box, and it weighs a few pounds, and it looks absolutely incredible. Very, very beautiful design, very clean looking, especially in the front. So let's take the elements of the back panel one by one. Being able to use USB-B and USB-C separately, because they're not bound to the same controller, they sound quite different as well, but we'll leave that for the sound section. You will be able to connect two different sources. I've not seen this before, and if there is, it's very rare. Thank you, Soncoz. This is wonderful, because if somebody has this on their desk or as their home theater system DAC, you're looking at an iPad connection from USB-C or some other device like it, and then you have USB-B, obviously for your computer, etc. Then you've got optical, so you can use this with your PlayStation, TV, etc. You've got AES and coax. The DDC coax can be daisy chained with another DAC, which is wonderful, and can be separately used from the other inputs, and it will put out separately even if you're on USB or optical or something else, which is wonderful. This DAC from Soncoz is just as impressive from the outside as it is on the inside. We have two linear power supplies. I honestly can't think off the top of my head which other DAC does this, which is wonderful. An 8km chip for the AES and SPDIF. Yes, okay. A pair of ESS DACs and Bluetooth, which receives signal. Thank you so much. Not all of us always like to listen to Diana's and Sesvaras and P9 signatures. Sometimes we just want to throw our iPhone streaming at our DAC. Absolutely brilliant. We have Wi-Fi on here, but unfortunately it's only for software upgrades. If this could have been put on a network and then used as an endpoint, that would have been awesome. But I think it's asking for a little bit too much. We're already getting an extensive amount of features for $500. This DAC can support DST up to 512 off of the USB, obviously, and 24192 off of the SPDIF, coaxial, AES, obviously, and 32768 PCM via USB. Absolutely brilliant. So you know you're getting a feature-packed DAC hardware-wise, you know you're getting a feature-packed DAC software-wise, but how does it sound? Because if it doesn't sound good, None of that matters. And I am so happy to say this sounds absolutely excellent for the price point, with some caveats which we'll get onto later. Then we have the remote control, which has all the inputs that correlates with the DAC, the volume control, the mute button, and the digital filter selector. Nice. Because if you're using this, like I stated, under your TV, you don't want to be getting up to change the volume on this thing. The software is also very ergonomically designed. You just push and hold, and the system software pops up. Then you got input selection, and then you got digital filter selection and all the settings. Once you've done this, you never really look at it again, but it's really ergonomically, organically implemented in the system, which is absolutely wonderful. No need to jump up and down, press things 5,000 times and then wait for something to change. No, it's very simple, very straightforward. And once you set it up, you're sorted. Excellent. Absolutely no complaints about this hardware whatsoever. I would have liked an I2S connection, but I think I'm asking for a little bit too much. So for $500, you're getting this feature-packed, heavy, beautifully designed DAC with a digital volume control if you need it. What are the problems in regards to the hardware? So, like I stated, no I2S, so I can't connect something like my Pi back here. I mean, that's fine, that's fair enough, it's not a big deal. The digital volume knob is a little irritating because it takes 95,000 years before it gets up to the top volume. And so you'll never get the opportunity to blow your own ears out if you're using this digital volume control as your volume control, which is wonderful, I suppose. But it can be very slow if you want to turn the volume up quickly. You have to do this. But that's why we have the volume control on the remote, which shoots up pretty quickly and mitigates that problem. So you've got a problem, and then you've solved the problem with a remote. No problem whatsoever. The Bluetooth section, and this is Bluetooth 5, so you've got no complaints there. It's wonderful, that's perfect. Hardware-wise, absolutely stellar. And for this price point, you're getting 4 solid tigers immediately right off the bat. Let's break down the sound characteristics, starting with the imaging and staging, because this is what's gonna stick out to you immediately before anything else. The staging is big on this thing, not only with height, width, and depth, but with a good vertical perception of gazing into the depth of the mix, which is actually quite wonderful. The reason why I'm bringing up the imaging and staging together, because they really do coincide. It is quite airy. The actual background is rather foggy. You're not getting a pitch black background of a hollow audio back here. Obviously that's $3,000, this is $500. You've got to have expectations. And then you've got the Sabre DAC characteristics. Unfortunately, even with the mitigation of the IMD hump, you're still getting that slight, ever so slight glare and ever so slight forward sounding, uncharacteristic, uncanny treble region. But I'm skipping ahead a little bit. So back to the soundstage. It's actually very, very wide. It's very, very good. And in conjunction with this wide, tall, deep soundstage, you have the imaging, where images overlap each other and give each other room and bypass each other like this very, very easily. Forward and back, left to right, at angles. It's actually very impressive. It will be the first thing you will notice, the soundstage and the imaging. Those two things are very, very audible immediately before anything else, and it's actually what's going to impress you more than anything. The next thing I would like to jump to is actually vocals, because I believe subjectively vocals on this DAC is the best performing aspect of the sound overall. The vocalists have the tendency to move forward towards you like this and back if they need to within the mix, which is wonderful. The actual size and image of the vocals is very present, and it's not 2D, it's kind of 3D, almost convincing, almost popping out of the stage, which is wonderful. And it's actually a very linear sounding vocal, so that the subtle problems I mentioned in regards to the treble region due to that Saber DAC, it's not impinging on the vocals. I was really impressed by this. Also, there's good body to the vocals from the bass region. It's actually very nice. It's very nuanced and it's very textured, and you can almost see the expression of the singer on their face as they're singing, as I like to put on this channel. At times, it's extremely resolving and vivid. In fact, I was listening to a track by Infected Mushroom. The singer popped out in front of my face so much I actually leant back like that. It's rare you get those opportunities to be so startled by a sound coming from a DAC, and this did it. It was very, very impressive. Very impressive. Then we drop to the bass region. Let's start with the sub bass. The sub bass is definitely there. And what's a good characteristic of this DAC is the speed. The speed is actually there. The resolving factor is almost there. It's not bad at all. I mean, we are talking about a $500 price tag. You get good body of the sub bass. You get a good speed of the driver, which is wonderful. But what you don't get is the slam. You don't get the weight. You do get a good characteristic size of the sub bass, so that you are audibly detecting actual depth and actual movement of air, and you're getting actual scope of the size. But what you're not getting is the heavy weight. You're not getting the actual power. It really does remind me of the Aria. If you can compare a headphone to a DAC, we're talking about characteristics where the sub bass goes really low. It's very big. It's very detectable. You know exactly what is happening, but there isn't that switch. There isn't that weight. There isn't that kick. It doesn't feel heavy. It feels like a large cardboard box with nothing inside. So as you're looking at it, you're thinking, my word, that thing's huge. You're not going to be able to move that. It's massive. How can you move that? And then you walk up to it and realize you can actually just push it aside pretty easily. So the sub bass has got good characteristics, has got good speed, has got good size, has got actual definition. It just doesn't have the weight. Also, there is another little caveat to this good sub bass, and that is that it does get muddled a little bit, especially with EDM tracks that have got a few instruments in this region and they're vibing for space. It does tend to get a little muddy, a little confused, not much though. If you haven't heard the multi-kilobuck DACs like the one behind me, you will never know. But it is there. It is worth mentioning. Because I am ranting and raving about this thing because it's absolutely wonderful. I would like you to know the bad sides of the story. Switching from this to a spring from hollow audio is immediately noticeable. But of course it should be. That brings us to the mid-range. The mid-range on this DAC, I think, might be tied in with the vocals and imaging and staging some of the best parts about it. Because the mid-range on this thing is lean, neutral, clean, well-defined, none of that glare, none of that fatigue. Absolutely beautiful. I love it, especially for things like the mid-mids and the low-mids of drum skins. It sounds deep, it sounds textured, and you get a spring as the sticks is hitting the center of the drums. It's absolutely wonderful, and it's got a good combination and a good synergy with the bass region for them to actually work together. I was really impressed by this. Quite surprised overall. I mean, we have a $900 DAC behind us from the top-end, the D90, and I think this out-resolves it at half the price, this outperforms it at half the price, and I choose this. When I get onto pairing and describe what you should be pairing it with, you do get a better performance out of this. This moves us onto the treble region. Right. This is where I personally have problems with this DAC. It's actually very detailed, don't get me wrong, but it is on the brighter side of things, and you really do have to be careful what you're pairing it with. There is good detail there, Don't get me wrong, but it's superficial detail. It's the outer edges of detail. It's the center of detail, but not the inside of the detail. The only way I can describe it is like the box is empty again. The box is there, you can see its edges, you can see its color, but you can't see the texture very well. The edge of instruments, like running up and down a violin or a cello or a double bass, you don't get the grit, you don't get the texture much, you don't get the actual body, but you do get good detail that it's a good cello, that it's a bad cello. You do get the feeling of the bow, and you can hear the bow running up and down the string, not just the sound itself. So you do get it. It's just on the uncanny valley of detail. When a guitarist runs his fingers up and down the fretboard with the strings, you do get that detail, but it doesn't feel visceral. It doesn't feel organic. It does feel very digital. In fact, this DAC does feel on the digital side of things a lot more than organic. It's not a bad thing, don't get me wrong. You are paying $500 for this and you're getting so much for your money. But I think when you've come away from a ladder DAC, it's a little bit jarring, a little bit. But again, very good performing. So there is good detail in the treble region. What I can't stand in the treble region personally is pairing this with a clean, clear, a little bit analytical amp like the Topping A90 behind me here, or even the SMSL SU8. It tends to over-exacerbate that treble region. For some songs it will work, but 1 out of 15 or so. And I do find fatigue. There is like a pressure build-up, like I mentioned in the Focal Clear MG review up here. I do get tired, or I have to listen at 50 dB levels of noise because there's a pressure there. There is an energy there in the, I would say, 8K and above, like 8K region and then 12K region. It's just fatiguing for my ears, and I think there might be something up there in the 16K region as well, if I'm not mistaken. It's just a bit tiring for me. I can't listen to this DAC for very long. That's on the clinical and slightly more neutral side of amplifiers. You've got to be really careful with that. If you've got an A90, I don't recommend this. You do not buy this. Maybe a Bifrost 2 from Sheet. Subscribe if you want to hear that review so we can bring it in. Something like this, no. I think a pairing like a Syncsa might be ideal for this. That amplifier is a little laid back, it's very musical, but it lacks edge, you know? It lacks a little definition. This gives you a little bit of that. It's a little bit aggressive in that region of attacks. So pairing it together, I think, might be a marriage made in heaven. So also, they look almost identical, they will sit nicely on top of each other, and I think this would make a beautiful little system together. These two, the Soncoz SGD1 and the Syncsa. Overall, high performing sound with some caveats. You just got to be a little careful about what you're pairing it with. With my studio monitors back here, they sounded wonderful. The staging, the layering, the imaging, it was absolutely stunning. None of that treble problem either, because my studio monitors are very flat, yet musical. It's got this slight smoothing effect where you don't lose any of the detail. It's just very, very high performing, and it just works beautifully together. I was actually using this for quite a while as my main DAC with those studio monitors during testing. Very, very good pairing. So the synergy is a thing. That brings us to headphones. On a regular basis, I used these, the Bowers & Wilkins P9 Signatures, review coming very, very shortly. That is a dark sound signature, akin to the beautiful Diana from Abyss. This review will be coming shortly too. Sorry, the review for this one was actually a little bit delayed. But these two headphones are dark sounding, but pierced with moonlight. They are looking up at the night sky with the stars coming out. And with this DAC, it's not too bad. You do get quite a lot of the artificial nature of this DAC with the P9 signatures. This headphone is notorious, absolutely notorious for telling you what you have moved, what you have changed, what you have added, and what you have taken away from your chain. It is so quick to pick up on any nuance of change on your chain. This one is a perfect version of the P9 signatures. And with this headphone, I'm afraid this DAC just doesn't cut it. It's okay, but there is too much problem in the treble region for this DAC, and that's on the A90. I think using something like the Soncoz with both of these headphones and this DAC will be a perfect pairing. For things like the KSC75, which I actually have under the table I was using for monitoring, it sounds wonderful. Sounds absolutely brilliant. You might want a warm headphone for this DAC if you're using it with something neutral like an A90 because you can't afford to upgrade your amplifier just yet. So, overall sound, pretty good, pretty excellent. You get a lot of the outer edges of the picture, you get a good understanding of the landscape, and you get fantastic separation from elements. It's all there. It's all crystal clear in front of you. What you don't get is the single blades of grass. What you don't get is walking in the field. More of a picture, more of looking at your phone, rather than walking in the sun through the grass and bending down to look at every flower and every leaf of grass. And that is what the Hollow Audio DACs bring you. But an absolutely exceptional effort from Soncoz. A fantastic price point for this DAC. I recommend it full-heartedly. I am giving this DAC 4 straight tigers. For the price, for the feature pack I/O back here, for the exceptional build quality, and the ergonomic software design. It all seamlessly blends nicely together. Well done, Soncoz. Very impressed. 4 tigers. So thank you for joining me on this review. Press the like button if you like this video so that we can actually get out from under the algorithm of YouTube. Currently we're fighting like Jon Snow in Battle of the Bastards and we are getting buried below. So I really would appreciate it if you could press that like button. Very irritating to ask, but it will help the channel grow and it will be your good deed for the day. I also would like to take a moment to thank my Patreon members for keeping the Audio Lounge chat alive. I would like to extend a big thank you to Armand for actually sending this in for review. He was the guy who sent in the second Aria unit for review because of the issues we had the first one review up here. Thank you so much, mate. You are a legend. And he has some absolutely incredible EQ presets for your Aria and other headphones if you would like to reach out and talk to him in Audio Lounge. I will see you next time. Peace.